Well, good evening, good afternoon. It's Robert A. Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom, and today I want to talk about the Florida shootings. And first, I'm going to say a little prayer to the people of Florida and the world. Infinite Spirit and the God above, may the light of love shine upon the world and all people as we open our eyes to the wisdom of individuality and move the world forward through innovation, intuition, inspiration, now and forevermore. Thank you and amen. And today, this show is about hope. And hope is Hellraiser's optimism, propelling enterprising wizardry, freeing people internally to expand through life, liberating innovative, far-seeing energy. But today I want to talk about people being the leaders of their life, and we got to disconnect from allowing government to run our lives, because government is caught up inside Washington, D.C. And they are caught up in their campaign contributions and running for office. And that really takes away from them seeing the world, and they become ingrained. Just like us, when we're in the negativity of life, we become ingrained. Or if we're in the inspiration of life, we become ingrained in that. But today is about people opening up their leadership abilities to expand themselves through life and open up their innovative intuition to see a better way for themselves. Because government can only do so much, and they got to make it a bureaucracy, and it just becomes convoluted. But people have the wisdom, but we've had it taken away from us because we've been trying to allow government to be the leaders of our life, and they become caught up in the campaign contributions, corporate America, and Wall Street. And basically, this is kind of cold, but the politicians have become corporate, and Wall Street brothels are, well, basically prostitutes, and Washington, D.C. is a corporate and Wall Street brothel. And it's up to us people in the citizenry to expand the people ourselves to move forward. And that's going to become through communication. And it's letting go of the arrogance that everything is perfect in this world. And it's letting go of being perfect, because there is no such thing as perfect. We're all imperfect in a perfect way, because we all have some talent, wisdom, innovation, and talent to move the world forward. It's time to disconnect and take responsibility and accountability for our lives. And here's a little thing I drew up. It's called, this right here, if I can get it right, is called, this is the finger pointing out here. I'll use a deal. The finger pointing out is the blame and shame, pointing at the world, but your fingers and thumb is locking in responsibility, accountability, and integrity. And that's what this world is begging for. We've lost our way because we've been too caught up and waiting for somebody else to take charge of our life. And we're also caught up in the change, trying to change this, but we've never expanded beyond 8th grade. But we've never expanded out of our ancient times and ancient history and ancient anger, ageless arrogance, and all that other stuff. And that is what we're here today to do, because this book I wrote called Dissolving Ancient Anger is about how the anger of today is from ancient times. But this is something I stumbled on and expanded of today. History was wrote by the military industrial complex and the elite bankers. World War II was the last war we've had that was for liberation. The Korean, the Vietnam, and every war ever since then has been for business and profit. And that's something we have to open our eyes to, and to understand that war is big business. And right now we're in the big business world, and we aggrandize war, but we never want to do the after effects of war. War is never over till the last wounded soldier has passed on and crossed the river. And that is something else. But we send them to war, but we come home and cut their benefits. But yet, we are paying people that are here unlawfully more money than we are paying our veterans for serving. And you know, everybody aggrandized the Iraq and the Afghanistan war at the beginning. They were really proud, but we don't hear much about it, but it's still going on. We're $700 billion into defense spending every year. And if you really want to look at something, look at who's making the money off of the defense spending. You'd be surprised how many of them are ex-secretaries of something, state, whatever. But it's about us people opening our eyes to understand the deal in Florida is about the demoralization of the family values of this country. The family fabric of this country is torn, but it can be repaired and respected and re-put back into place if we open our hearts to seeing that it's people communicating with people and being the leaders of our own community and taking out Washington, D.C., because Washington, D.C. is so lobbyist friendly that we'll never ever move it. But people can move it forward. We can move it, you and me. And that is something we can do when we stop thinking and being so busy. And this here is something else. There has never been legislation for family. This world has become anti-family, anti-worker, anti-wage, and anti-anything for the people of the country. And that is where the expansion of ourselves become. It's expansionism. Inside me, I see me expanding through life with a new wave of wisdom, because wisdom, innovation, and talent will expand the world out of this being caught up that the government's good for all, because the government will never take us forward. And also we have to really open up and look at the college education, because the MBAs of business are never taught family values. It's always about what's good for the corporation, and Wall Street is good for the country. And that's kind of where we're stuck in today, because what's good for Wall Street and good for business takes away from somebody. What we have to open up to understand, we have to stand together and open up for the politicians' eyes and start passing legislation that is good and beneficial for everybody, because the family is getting left out in the world. You know, the wages have went down ever since NAFTA, and everybody, when NAFTA and all the free trade agreements come in, they said we got to compete in the world. Well, when you're competing with a third world country and their wages are 30 cents an hour and yours are 20, who's going to compete and who's going to lower themselves down? Everything they've told us about free trade has been a fallacy. And we got to start as people standing up to the fallacies, and the politicians are flat out fabricators of the truth. I think they're so corrupt in Washington, they forgot where the truth starts and the fabrication begins. And that's where we as people have to quit being the sheeple and going along with it just because they said it. And another thing is, the more you look at this and you see how the military-industrial complex wrote the school books that the kids are using today, and we are in such a fast pace, work 20, 60, 70 hours a week. And the unions, when they started, was 40 hours a week. But the unions have been weakened through their own, actually their own vices and through bad publicity, which they deserve. But it isn't the unions, it's a collective bargaining people have to open up. And we got to collectively bargain for a better way of life. And that's through inspiration, innovation, and everything else. But the elected officials will never, ever get out of the campaign contributions because they're so entrenched. If anybody wants legislation, you got to pay their 527s. And that's their net, and that's their nonprofit funds, and that's what they want people to pay. You pay that, you get legislation. In the late 90s, there was a congressman out of Texas. He really explained that to people. And if you read about it, and that is what happens. And when Enron come in and they did all that chaos to California, well, that was done on a special appropriation spending bill that had to pass. A senator out of Texas attached that legislation for Enron to do that, while his wife was on the board of directors of Enron. See, it's the corruption and the pollution in Washington, D.C., and we the people, me, I've been afraid to say anything until today. But today is the day we start expanding of ungoverned, animated inspiration to innovate new ways to alleviate government's intervention through entrepreneurialism, people seeing their own talents. But we got to start a peaceful prosperity by talking to each other and seeing how we can come together as communities. And it's like they say that kid, they saw it coming, but everybody's afraid to say anything anymore because of everything that's going on. But here's the thing, we have to start looking at each other and talking to each other in just communication. But the thing is, there is the shooting in Florida. But they talk about the young man that did the hideous incident. But they ain't talking about doing anything to the person that actually is at the top of that supremacy group. See, violence, 5% violence can control 95% of the population through fear. And that's what's here. Everybody, they leave these violent groups like this. They don't touch them. It's like drugs. They don't touch the kingpins very seldom. They play down here where they just keep like the drug dealers, the local drug dealers. They never ever go after the big people. We can go to Afghanistan and take a country down. You're telling me we can't go take down a drug lord with the military power we have? It's all a fascinating game of shame and blame when it all comes down. And it's like you watch the news. Well, it ain't news. It's propaganda. Let's just be honest, it's pure bullshit. Anyway, you watch this one, they're talking this, you're talking this. And when it comes down to like the immigration problem, one is talking do this, but the other one talking about they both come down, it's for the corporations and their labor pool to keep wages low. Low wages and 60 hours a week, and the family working, mom and dad working 2 to 3 jobs, keeps the family divided, keeps the country divided. It's about getting back to where we have prosperity for everybody, but that is going to be a challenge because in the 60s we was on the gold standard. That's when everything you had solid, your money was worth something. But in 1970 we started off the gold standard. And you can follow the gold standards, the fall of the dollar, just by a new pickup. In 1970, a new pickup was $5,000. 75, it was $10,000. 80, it was 15, 85, 20, 25, 30, 35. Now they're $80,000. Same pickup, basically. But we have it's been a silent deration of the dollar. And then the lower wages and the pressure on the family. People are under intense pressure, and people don't know how to relieve it and get rid of it. Personal growth is one thing, self-help is another, but expansionism is it's inside me, I see me free. Everything has got to come in through here, in through the inside, because everything is the feelings and emotions. That is where that young man in Florida that did the hideous, his feelings and emotions were so suppressed. This is how he released them. But yet, he belonged to a supremacy group or some kind of group, and nobody's talking about doing anything with that group because that group keeps law-abiding citizens in control, or easy to control, because a society of violence is an easy society to control, but a society of peace is never controlled because they see a better way and they never know what people are doing, because violence is right out in the open. Peace is silent, calm, cool, collective, ready to expand the world. And right now, to me, in my opinion, in my viewpoint, not my opinion, but in my inspirational expression, a Gandhi type movement is required in this country to move it forward. It's individual leadership. And that is the savvy and the lure and the unknown quantities and qualities that we all possess. And it's all wisdom, innovation, and talent. And we can do this, but we have to start communicating with each other. And it's cutting out the arrogance, I'm smarter than you in this, because it's the arrogance of this country has got us where we're at today, because it's all about business, it's all about Wall Street, it's this, but it's all about money. And here's the deal about money. If you got a dollar bill backbone, you're either this, you're flopping in the wind. Integrity and morals will move the country forward. A country that is morally and ethically bankrupt is soon financially collapsed. And right now, if you look at the United States, we have some expansion and some conversations to have on entrepreneurialism and everything else, because the government, the jobs, and the wages are going to have pressure on them from here to eternity, because we have this thing that low wages are the way to go, but wages are the weekly stability of the economy, and that's where people are afraid. Wages and high wages give people abundance and be able to buy things, but abundance makes a society harder to control with their military. Well, basically it's the military industrial complex conditioning that we live, because the military industrial complex is the one that writes the books we read. And history was never taught to teach us. History was taught to control us. And history teaches war, pillage, plunder, and hate, basically. And see, we brought the world forward on anger and hate, because you're going to tell me the kids today in the Middle East, the Sunnis, the Shiites, even the kids in this country, just because we have different colors, we already hate each other, and we don't even know why we do. We've lost it so long. And we had the Civil War, and we've never expanded beyond the Civil War. See, we have ingrained in our head, in our subconscious, that war takes care of tyranny. War is tyranny. The only thing that takes care of war is peaceful, inspirational conversation. And it's got to be able to be unsettling, unstable, and uncertainty to come into the savoir-faire of the debonair flair of all of us. It's really about the light of love from us, light opening up the world to a better understanding that it's people, and life is a people business. And people forever be the assets of the world. They are the gems that will expand the world. But we've been taught it's business and Wall Street, and that is partially true, but the third of that is being left out. It's the people. Always the people will lead the world. And it's time for the people of the United States and of all the world to disconnect the government's intrusions through whatever, but to open up a peaceful, entrepreneurial conversation on how we can each open up the talents of the people of the world. And this, I am Robert A. Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom, and I want to thank Val, Amy, June, Ronald, and Candace for being on the show with me. And thank you. And I will be here Tuesday night. We're going to talk about how there's no negativity in the world. Negativity is a mindset, and the negativity of the world is asking for our innovative talents to expand us out of yesterday. So thank you, and everybody have a good day. And this was my honor and privilege to be in here.